We're doing a ranking, a new era ranking, and I'm ready to make everybody mad with my list. We're 5 seasons into the new era so far, with a 6 coming very, very soon. And coming off a season that I believe gave us some pretty fun tribal councils throughout the season, and we're less than a week away from another season, no time felt better than now to give my personal favorite tribal councils in the new era so far. The ranking is going to be pretty simple. I believe I watched 25 tribal councils of the new era that I believed were the best purely from memory. And then from those 25, I ranked all of them. And the top 10 are the ones that I will be talking about in depth. Before we dive into the top 10, two things I want to say. I am purely looking at the tribal councils for the list. So the build-up or anything that happened before tribal council will not be taken into account. Second of all, this is purely my opinion and how I feel about each tribal. There is no objective ranking to these tribal councils. It's how I felt maybe watching it live or watching it back or even a mix of the two. If you disagree with me, I welcome your opinions in the comments. Just don't hate on me too much. Alright, I promise I'm getting to the top 10 for a moment, but I did watch 25 tribal councils, and I wanted to talk about some of the tribal councils that didn't quite make the top 10 that I wanted to give a shout out to. To start, actually, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna talk about a couple of tribals that massively disappointed me on the rewatch. Specifically, the High Tribal was honestly very boring, and the blindside didn't feel as grand as it probably felt on the island. The Omar vote is the same way. Yes, it's a 3-2-2 vote with Marianne single-handedly taking out her closest ally, but the tribal had no fun moments, and I think the episode as a whole is much better at depicting the blindside than the tribal council itself. For the tribal councils that just missed the mark for me, the James vote out in Survivor 43 has always been fun. The retelling of the Owen versus James fight, only for them to start fighting again, and then Noel's advantage bluff to make James think that he's safe, it's just a lot of fun. The first tribal in Survivor 44 where Maddie gets taken out was a lock in my mind to make this list, I'm gonna be honest. When I watched the episode live, I was convinced this was going to be the craziest season of all time. But on the rewatch, I don't know if it didn't hit as hard or maybe other seasons jogged my memory more, and it just missed out on the top 10. I will always be a defender of the Sean vote out / quit tribal council in Survivor 45. Yes, Sean basically quits the game because he misses his husband, but the aftermath where Dee still wants to vote out Sifu, but Jay and Julie don't go through with it gave us... I love this tribal, and I know I have it a lot higher than most, but not quite top 10. The most recent vote out in the show was almost in the top 10, the infamous and only 2-1-1-1 vote in Survivor US history. Julie's vote out in Survivor 45 was so much fun for every single part of it, except for one thing. I loved everything about Jake's idol play. And of course the vote is completely bonkers. This would have been a bona fide top 10 tribal if they did not show us Katurah flipping her vote. Show us after tribal to explain what happened. At tribal, the second Katurah said that, I knew Julia was going home. And that killed the fun of this tribal for me. Imagine we don't know Katurah flipped her vote. Dee could be getting blindsided right now, and then bam, Julie goes out. They missed a great opportunity. Love Jake though. Alright, I've talked about these honorable mentions too long. Let's start and get into the top 10. At number 10 is a tribal that only happens because of a twist. A stupid twist, but I love so much about this tribal. And it's Matt's vote out in Survivor 44. I might be a psychopath and love seeing people plea and fight for their lives, but that is exactly what we get this tribal, and I'm so here for it. Matt brings out all the stops with his bag and bringing a papaya as an offering, and then Jam Jam is effortlessly hilarious in every possible way. Then the tribal turns serious and real. Both Matt and Jam Jam get very emotional thinking about how this could be their final night in the game, and how bad they want to be here. At the same time, you see the contrast with Carolyn and Franny watching on the sidelines, unable to do anything to help their respective number ones. Heidi's advantage kinda ruined this tribal for me, I'm not gonna lie. She meant well, but really screwed Matt over by saying, hey, Matt is our ally, without even having the numbers to save him, and Matt is voted out 3-2 because of it. It's such an emotional tribal council, but one of those tribals that made me feel something. I was invested in both of them, and that's why it's number 10 on the list. Number 9 is also on this list due to the pure emotion it brings out. And while I think the tribal as a whole isn't very interesting until the end, that ending is so powerful to me, and I think it's justified in its placement. It's the first big blindside of the new era, Shan's vote out in Survivor 41. Like I mentioned, I don't think much of anything interesting happens before the vote, but oh damn, once that vote comes out, and we see Liana and Shan blindsided on a 3-3-2 split, everybody watching and playing knows exactly what's about to happen. The music, the looks, the expression on Shan's face, it's the equivalent to a slow motion car accident, and Shan can't do anything to stop it. It's one of my favorite moments of the new era, period. It holds up on a rewatch as well, and such a big move in the season that I can't do anything but appreciate it. Enjoy Ricard's confessional as well as we move on to number 8.
We always said when the time was right, we'd give each other permission to do this. So sorry.
Well, we're wrapping up Survivor 44 already because the number 8 spot and my favorite tribal council from Survivor 44 was the Danny vote out. This tribal council is started, carried, and finished by one Miss Carolyn. Her faces are so funny, all tribal. One of my favorite funny moments of the new era is her interaction with Jeff here.
Are you annoyed?
Absolutely.
Are you mad at me now?
Yes.
Why?
I say the same thing.
Going up to the vote, she's sitting there just counting on her fingers to see where the votes are lining up. And the grand finale, Bam Bam, plays her idol for Carson. And even if the idol wasn't necessary, it's a great moment for Carolyn and for the season. And Danny is voted out 3-2-2. Danny's De Niro impression is certainly a choice, but this is peak Carolyn for me from start to finish. And in a season that didn't have very exciting votes at all, I remember watching this live and getting excited and being relieved that we finally got a good tribal. This was a lot of fun to rewatch, and it's in at number 8. Number 7 is one of only 2 pre-merge tribal councils I have on this list, and it was a really great one. Welcoming Survivor 45 into the top 10 with the Sabaya vote out. I'm of 2 minds with this tribal, and both I believe can be true. I do think the episode as a whole during this boot is better than the tribal council itself. At the same time, this tribal council was what jump-started and got me extremely excited about the season moving forward. Come on, Sabaya literally starts the tribal before any questions are asked, just cooking her candle idol, just out in the open, and she got the sticks and the machete and all the tools ready at her disposal. And to have questions being asked, a whole blindside getting ready to jump into action all while we have an idol barbecue is one of my favorite scenes of the season. Then afterwards, Sabaya gets her idol and has the dilemma to sacrifice her vote in order to extend the idol's life. And she goes through with it, only to get blindsided in a 2-1 vote. It's pure cinema, and I love Sabaya as a character, but this entire tribal had so much fun. And as a big player going out so early into the season, it's completely deserving of its top 10 spot to me. We're going back to back and getting both of the pre-merge tribal councils out of the way, and I could assume a lot of people would have this tribal much higher, but number 6 is still a very high placement in my opinion, and that's the Jenny vote out from Survivor 42. Come on, it starts out with Daniel explaining to everybody why he will lose Survivor, and it's low-key iconic. Of course, Mike and Chanel cannot vote, and Hai flipping his vote at the last second to Jenny, causing a 2-2 tie paired with Hai's facial expressions, and
We're at the votes.
this is the closest we've gotten to rocks in a long time in Survivor, and it was all going on at this tribe's first tribal council in episode 3. Then we get a nice little discussion between Hai and Daniel about who they should vote. Oh my god, Daniel just instantly throwing Chanel under the bus. I feel like everybody played this tribal council extremely poorly except for Hai, especially Daniel and Chanel. And a lot of arguing, and Hai standing on business for his BFJ queen is iconic, but it also means we lose Queen Jenny, one of the most robbed players in modern Survivor history. It's the most what the fuck tribal council on this list, and it's not even close. It's a bunch of insane and not very good players just bumping their heads together and almost causing a rock draw. It's everything to me and just missed the top 5. Top 5, ooh la la, here we go. And I think this tribal council has been criminally underrated and underreported due to everything that has gone on postseason with a certain individual. But in the moment, watching this tribal by itself, it's one of the most powerful and enlightening tribal councils of the new era, and I can't do anything except love it. That's the Tory quote-unquote vote out during the split tribal in Survivor 42. What's so unique about this tribal is the dynamics of the tribal were completely thrown off before they even sat down. They saw Roxroy on the bench, and Drea was so shaken up by that, and seeing 2 of the 4 black players on the season sitting on the bench, she was not ready to allow that pattern to continue. And this entire tribal was more of a lesson or an ability to learn from a different perspective that I was so enamored by. Despite the not so great things Drea did after the show, in this exact moment, you can see how much pain she feels. And when you realize the plan going into Tribal was to vote out Drea, it makes it so much more powerful when Drea announces she will be playing her idol, and Marianne coming in full support of Drea, outright saying she's not going to vote for Drea. Then when things break out and Jonathan talks out of his ass, saying Drea is being aggressive and that they're accusing them of being racist, when that couldn't be further from the truth. They don't want to enable a pattern of the black people being voted out, while at the same time not wanting to use race as an excuse to not get them voted out. Which makes the double idol play one of the most emotional and empowering moments of me during the entire rewatch, and I highly recommend everybody watch this tribal if you haven't in a while, because I couldn't do half of a good job as describing the situation Drea and Marianne were in during this moment. And even aside from that, you get a pretty live tribal where it's pretty much Tori or Lindsay going at it, and everyone agrees to vote out Tori. She says screws it and plays her shot in the dark. And yeah, it fails, and yeah, Tori goes home, but the entire tribal is so powerful, so emotional, and so underrated. And I think it's the best tribal from Survivor 42, and well worthy of a top 5 spot on my list. Might be hitting you with a hashtag blindside at number 4 here, because I'm sure a ton of people consider this to be number 1, at least top 3. The only Survivor 43 representation on this list will go to the final 6. Everyone knows it. It's Cody's tragic blindside. Honestly, I do believe this is one of, if not the best move of the new era made by Jesse here, but it's not any higher on the list because nothing relevant happens before the actual vote, aside from Cody saying he's a 9.5 out of 10 on the confidence scale. But once that first idol comes out, it's pure cinema. Jesse playing Cody's idol for Owen in order to bait Carla to play her idol on herself, only for the majority 4 to all vote out Cody. And this, kind of like the Shan vote, was a slow motion car accident in reality TV form. Everybody knew at that moment what was about to happen. It's so tragic, but you can't do anything but watch it go down. Like the drama, people, the drama. I love the music used. I love the shots and the scenes. Just everything about the move in itself was fantastic. I don't need to explain why this tribal council is amazing. You all know why. But it's not my number 1. It's not even top 3.
A hooey ho and aloha.
Down to the top 3, and spoiler alert, we got 2 tribals from Survivor 45 and 1 tribal from Survivor 41. And we're gonna run it back with Survivor 45, this tribal being the Kelly boot. Oh, what a tribal this was from beginning to end. 2 stars absolutely carry. Jake, Baby Girl O'Kane, and of course, the blindside E and Kelly. The entire tribal before the vote is the Jake show, forgetting what he's talking about and being so convinced he's going home, he's just kind of distraught. And that is truly what makes this elite, is that this man was convinced if his shot in the dark doesn't go through, he's going home. And of course it doesn't go through. 3 votes for Jake fly by until that moment.
Kelly.
Oh, it becomes cinema.
People are playing Survivor.
3
And Kelly goes home.
Whoa! Sorry. Whoa.
Like, come on. I know exactly how I felt watching this moment play out live, and I was jumping up and down. That is how I want to feel. Not necessarily excitement, but just emotions. And this one gave me some of the best emotions any tribal council in a long time has given me. It's a genuine grade A blindside on a frontrunner in this game. Iconic.
What the hell, guys?
We are down to the top 2. Both are the merged tribal councils, or I guess the hourglass, or mergatory, whatever the hell you want to say. It's the first tribal all tribes come together, and something about those merge episodes brings some really amazing tribal councils. Number 2 is definitely the most chaotic tribal of the new era, and one of the most complex votes ever, back to Survivor 41 with the Sydney vote out. Oh my god, where do I start? I guess the only way to begin is where Xander pulls out his quote-unquote idol for everybody to see, prompting Liana to play her knowledge's power to steal Xander's idol, and we all know what happens here.
No, but you can have this fake.
And from there, it's complete pandemonium and turns into a live tribal. Oh, okay, it's dying down again. Perfect. Nope. Back to a perfectly live tribal with both tribes splitting into groups like they're about to call a football play. It's incredible. And of course, even after all this, I think the vote is the best part of the tribal. Sydney plays her shot in the dark to try and protect herself. Does not work. And then Tiffany gets up ready to play Xander's idol for Evie, but Xander stops her right there. And there's a full-blown discussion between Evie, Tiffany, and Xander on whether or not to play the idol. But in the end, Tiffany does not play for Evie, and they let it ride. And this was so intense as vote after vote after vote for Evie drops until we have a 4-4-3 with one vote left.
7th person voted out of Survivor 41. Sydney.
Oh my god, Sydney completely robbed. But a 5-4-3 vote? Are you kidding me? And Sydney would have stayed if she didn't play her shot in the dark. The entire thing is electric and chaotic from start to finish. I will never argue with anybody over this being their number one, but my personal number one just has a little something extra, and that is why this will be left at number 2. Number 1, everyone knows what it is. No suspense for a piece of history with the J vote out in Survivor 45. There is one single moment that might just be a top 10 Survivor moment of all time in this episode. After Caleb kind of sees the writing on the wall that he's the big target, he does everything he can to throw Jay under the bus, while calling out Dee and Julie just for fun. And of course, everybody should know the iconic and infamous Hail Mary from Caleb to cement him as a Survivor icon.
Caleb, you are. Safe.
Unbelievably iconic to me. This will be number 1 because of the fact that I was screaming and running around my living room right as this happened. My jaw was on the floor. I've never felt such joy in my life. It was exhilarating. Like, I know I have an obsession with reality TV, but that moment cemented for me that Survivor is the greatest show in the world and could never be topped for me. Of course, every last vote was for Caleb, so we get a revote and a live tribal with Jay pitching for her life to stay in the game and take out Emily. But in the end, Jay goes near unanimously on the revote, and we are left out of breath and shocked beyond belief. From front to back, it may not be the best, but my experience here was my favorite, and I don't think anybody can argue with that because that's how I feel, and it's the best tribal council in the new era, in my opinion, because of that moment. That's a list. That is a lot of tribal councils I've watched and I've given my opinion on. Overall, the new era is very flawed, but we're still able to get some really great moments and vote outs from time to time. And cheers to hoping Survivor 46 can add 2 or 3 of their tribal councils onto this list in the future. That's all for now. Stick around and subscribe if you enjoy this content. There is plenty more from all kinds of reality shows coming your way, but that'll do it for me. If you made it to the end of the video, I love you. Platonically, of course. And I will undoubtedly see ya when I see ya. Bye-bye.